If you are new to my channel, you are probably going to think this video is a bit weird, maybe even a bit schizo. I'm going to try my best to explain to you what's happening with AI grokking. This video isn't some formal collegiate lecture. I'm not going to show you mathematical proofs or anything like that. I'm just going to point out a simple concept. That's my only job here, and maybe one of the intelligent among you will be inspired to look in this direction. I won't beat around the bush or anything like that, so let's start with some basic observations. Artificial intelligence is the buzzword right now, but it's important to know that there really isn't a good understanding of what intelligence is. And before you go running into the comments section, I have Google just like you. I'm not uninformed. I've been digging into this the majority of my life, unfortunately. We don't even know what quote unquote real intelligence is, let alone artificial. I mean, this is our major dilemma as a species, trying to figure out what in the hell are we? What happened to us? How did monkeys start building nuclear reactors? The in vogue way of defining intelligence is as pattern recognition. This is how we all describe it today. But you don't have to dig very deep before the foundations of reality start to rattle. If patterns are the vehicle by which all understanding is conveyed, all you have to do is ask, well, what is a pattern? For such a simple question, you don't really see any people asking it today, scientists nor philosopher. Probably because this realization will send you straight into schizo territory, I must warn you. Pattern, for all intents and purposes, is fundamental. There is no getting underneath it. All explanations of what patterns are just other synonyms for pattern. For example, you could say a pattern is just order, but when you ask, well, what is order? You'd say that order is just a pattern. It can only be defined with itself in this loop of self-justification. Now, I take a few of these synonymous terms and bundle them into my catchphrase. Reality is pattern, connection, information, and relationships. That's my little jingle. How do you like it? After studying this for years, I've actually made a catch-all term. I take all of these words and bundle them into a single domain, which I call memory. And for the sake of time and for the expected return on energy for making this video, because I'm not getting rich off of this, I can't go into the full lecture on memory. I have a website called paramind.org where I really dig into all of this and explain everything. The link for that is in the description. But be warned, the material is transformative in nature. You may come across one or two wacky ideas over there. I'm just laying the groundwork for us to get to grokking. It's a process. Now, the next step is understanding that what a pattern fundamentally has to be is something reaching its fullest potential. A pattern is by definition the inability for change to take place. A pattern is something which resists change. A pattern repeats, and as soon as that isn't the case, the pattern is no more. It becomes some new thing or variant. Patterns exist in a state of rest. This rest state is a state of exhausted potential. This realization is axiomatic. It's just self-evident. And by now you might be thinking, okay, but this is just the first pillar to understanding this whole grokking thing. I'm getting there. A pattern is a potentialist state which serves as the building blocks of intelligence. Now, things will get a bit more tricky from here. Stafford Beard had a little rule of thumb which states that the purpose of a system is what it does. Well, pattern recognition, aka intelligence, does what? This is easy. It learns. Pattern recognition is just a longer way of saying learning, right? And learning is spooky stuff. Learning is actually the end result of processes. In other words, learning doesn't happen first, it happens last. The thing which initiates learning is a problem. A problem is encountered, then learning occurs. At least that's what we call it, a problem. That's how it looks from our perspective, like a problem to be solved. However, a problem isn't just some tensor equation or y equals mx plus b. A problem can be anything. It's any lack in the system, or what I call missing information over on Paramount. We encounter an astronomical amount of problems every day. This is what our brains are, right? A problem-solving biomachine. You can also look at it in terms of goals. This is how science describes it as well. They call it goal oriented behavior in systems. A goal is just a solution to a problem, or you could say it has the problem inherently embedded within it. The problem is resolved by reaching the goal, and then learning occurs. A goal is a desire to manifest something which is lacking in a system. This idea of something which is lacked is very important. For example, I am not there and I want to be there, or it is too hot here and I desire to not be hot. We can only desire something which we don't have, right? It is lack. Buddhism talks about this, but we haven't gone full woo woo yet. This is all still anchored in philosophy and science. And you may be thinking I'm talking about humans or being anthropocentric when I say we desire. But I mean all of nature. Atoms and molecules desire what they don't have as well. And I'm using air quotes here when I say desire. We say they do it in the name of seeking some kind of stability. Everything moves to fill some kind of gap in nature. These are the laws of thermodynamics. It's seeking equilibrium. From ecosystems to solar systems, this is the case. And the funny thing is that it turns out everything learns. All kinds of unsuspecting things in nature exhibit goal oriented behavior. Even molecules learn. Molecular networks have been shown to learn, and as these networks learn, they become more deeply connected and greater than the sum of their parts. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Intelligence isn't a unique human trait. It's more like a spectrum we are on, but more on this later. And with the proper perspective, you could even see that evolution itself is like a learning program. Do you see how problems, goal fulfillment, gaps/lack in the system, and learning are all connected? Now I'm going to try and make things easier here. You can look at learning via the lens of problem solving and goal orientation, but that's a bit messy. Problems are subjective. A problem for you most of the time isn't a problem for me. Furthermore, two subjects can have inverted problems. For example, you may want to cross the bridge and I may want you to not cross the bridge. Then game theory enters the chat and you get into this big mess of a chess match. And I think chess is a great way to look at this because instead of looking at it like problems and solutions, it's a lot simpler and cleaner to view it all as decisions. Both chess players encounter their own unique problems or goals, right? Which can remain hidden from the other player, hopefully. What cannot remain hidden are their decisions. They have to move a piece. They have to act. So with this perspective, there are no problems encountered, only decisions. What action will be taken by any given subject? This may be tricky to understand, but you could view a decision as the fundamental particle of all action. You could say that on the way to fulfilling any goal, you make countless other decisions, right? Let's say you want to go to the store. That's the big goal. But then you have to decide, okay, what clothes do I put on? This is another set of decisions nested within the first one. Then it's, what do you need to bring with you before you leave the house? Car keys, wallet, all that jazz. That's another set. But then there are all of these even tinier decisions within those. For example, when you are putting on clothes, in which order will you put the clothing onto your body? What kinds of clothing will you wear? When you are getting the things you need to leave, in which order will you retrieve them? Then you get into this whole traveling salesman game of efficiency, but there's even more. As you do all of this stuff, you are making decisions about your balance, posture, speed, you name it. There are so many decisions taking place all of the time, many of which have been absorbed into the background. They take place unconsciously, like blinking, but they are still taking place. For example, anyone with anxiety knows that the mind is always determining if something is a threat or not, with or without your conscious permission. A stranger watching all of this unfold wouldn't know your goal of going to the store. They would see you just doing tasks, aka making decisions. So a decision is any action taken by a subject. And I know this all may be a bit strange to follow, but it's about to get weirder. I'm trying not to get too much into the metaphysical weeds here because this video is about grokking, but I believe that this is what time is. This whole scenario of goals, problems, decisions, and learnings are an expression of a lack in a system. It's hidden information. It's anything that is desired but not yet manifested. Or, in simpler terms, it's anything that can be found out, right? That's what we do with problems. We figure them out. Learning is the revelation of hidden information. And by far the most common problem encountered is now what? Or what next? This is what time is. It's finding out what happens next all of the time. It is a problem that is always being solved, a gap that is constantly being filled. It is hidden information that is constantly being revealed. This is a moment in time, and it is a decision. You are constantly learning what happens each moment. Time is like the computational cost it requires to find that out. It has to deal with how much information is being processed. This is why time flies when you're having fun. It's a measurement of a rate of change, keyword being measurement here. It's either every moment is a decision that was made, or every decision is a moment in time, or something like that. This is why I say a decision is like a fundamental particle. This is also the accumulation of novel information, which will be important shortly when we talk about chaos. Now, here is where you get your Willy Wonka ticket into Schizoland. There is some kind of unseen decision matrix at play which appears to us as exploration. We see this progressive decision matrix at play especially in algorithmic games like the traveling salesman problem. Funnily enough, nature operates in this very way. The neurons in our fetal brains play this game when it's wiring itself up. Tree roots do it, bugs do it, bacteria do it. I think it's safe to say that nature does it. This is nature's nature. And I'm trying to keep this as down to earth as possible. And we're getting closer to the grokking part, I promise. But this exploration is the filling of a space. It's a possibility space which is being explored. This exploration slash expansion is experienced as decisions or problem solving and learning. It appears like things are being built on top of each other. Now, when this possibility space is filled, something termed by science as emergent complexity occurs. They don't know what it is, but I'm trying to explain it to you right now. When you think deeply about it enough, you'll see it really is indistinguishable from learning. This is because when the possibility space is full, there is no more potential left. There is no more space left to explore or expand into. There is no more room left for anything to happen. There is no more possibility. But guess what that means? We circle back to the beginning of this video. All that's left is pattern or knowledge, or in the case of AI, understanding. That's what a pattern is, a state of having no more possibility. Emergent complexity is what happens after all potential has been exhausted. Then there is a rupture into a new dimension of some kind. More context is added. Things become greater than the sum of their parts. That's what nature does. It fills up one space and then it bursts into another dimension and it fills that one up and it just keeps going and going with this process. You know, people say I remind them of Terence McKenna. He used to say it's an engine that conserves novelty. You can take a look at chaos theory to see this in action. A chaotic system is hypersensitive to initial starting conditions, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure you all heard it before. The real key here is that chaotic systems don't repeat. You can view this non-repetition as constant exploration. It's novelty seeking. I call it the influx of the imagination. That's what I call this possibility space, by the way, but I don't have time to go into it here. Go to paramind.org if you want to learn more about the imagination and memory. But getting back to this novelty-seeking chaotic system, all this means is that if you let the system run, eventually it will fill the entire domain. It will fill the possibility space. It will take every possible route. Remember I said it appears as exploration? Well, it explores all options. It masters the domain. And at the end of that, the complete pattern will be illuminated and learning occurs. Because learning happens when a gap is filled. It's all about fulfilling a lack. This is where emergence takes place. When the gap is filled, everything becomes one unified thing. because that's what a pattern is. It's something that can't be anything else, a singular identity. It's some kind of expression of homogeneity, but I think a better word is unity. I'm noticing that science is finally admitting what has been known by the woo-woos for millennia. Reality is one thing disguised as many things. Now they call it a smooth continuum that we dice up into little slices or a unified field. It's complete interconnectedness. It's smoothness for all of my chaos people. All possible possibilities manifest, filling the space and form something greater than the sum of their parts. All of those varying trajectories are like many decisions taking place on the way to a bigger goal, like when you went to the store. It's pieces of the puzzle filling the gaps in the system. And when the puzzle completes, something happens. When you dig into the metaphysics behind this, what happens is indistinguishable from learning. Or I can simply ask you, what's the real difference between us witnessing emergent complexity and us learning something new? I mean, really sit down and think about it. It's order emerging from chaos, literally. Non perception to something beheld. The reason they call it emergent is because, from their perspective, it appears to pop out of nowhere. What I'm trying to say is that nowhere is a place. It's some kind of possibility space. And I think this is the hardest thing for people to get or intuit, the feeling of the possibility space. And maybe Plato or Aristotle can help you understand it, so go check them out. But once you see it, it changes everything. You see it everywhere, like in AI. Now let's finally take a look at Grokking. Since you clicked this video, I'm going to assume you already know what grokking is, but here's the too long didn't read version. AI grokking is a phenomenon where a neural network goes from simply memorizing data to being able to generalize and essentially reason. It is an odd junction where the system quote unquote gets it or has an aha moment. This happens after something called overfitting takes place. Now, overfitting means the AI has pretty much become too good. It perfectly remembers all the data it's been trained on. In essence, it has learned everything there is to know in the given domain. In other words, it has completely explored the space. I hope you can see where I'm going here with all of this. If not, I failed as a teacher. When an AI is overfit, it has all the answers. It's like a perfect memory database. There is no more potential left, nothing left for it to learn. And then boom, something happens. Emergent complexity. The AI learns something new. The data becomes greater than the sum of its parts and bursts into a new dimension of understanding. Grokking doesn't come to me as mysterious or even a surprise. It's following the exact pattern I would come to expect. This is how I know some strange cybernetic form of Darwinism is already taking place as well, probably underneath our nose. I know all this talk about possibility space isn't the mathematical answer your mind is probably willing to accept. It's much more abstract and philosophical, but that is what's happening. It's all rooted in epistemology because pattern is fundamental. It's impossible to understand what intelligence is doing without taking a hard look at patterns themselves. The problem is convincing the normal population of this. They are going to want proof, but how can you prove the existence of a possibility space that is the antithesis of explanation and materiality? It's where stuff is before it becomes stuff. We haven't learned it yet. It's what we casually refer to as the future. I can't formally prove it, the same way that anything beyond the present moment is just all theory. The future is unpredictable. We sort of have to wait for it to happen to see if we were right or wrong. However, what I believe is that everyone has the ability to naturally intuit it. You can see it. We all can. I'm just trying to give you the eyes to see. This is why I go by Third Eye Tyrone. We have some kind of strange ability to peer into possibility space. It's how we are able to make predictions, right? How we are able to imagine. which is why I call it the imagination. What is the imagination but the exploration of possibilities? Because if you knew everything, there would be nothing left to imagine. That's another one of my catchphrases. Grokking is really my Trojan horse to give you an even greater understanding of reality at large. I have to give you my cooties. This is what reality is doing. I remember people used to talk about simulation theory, and I always thought, how could you be so close yet so far from the answer? What is a simulation? A simulation is just a program that explores possibilities. It runs scenarios. Which way will the hurricane go if there is a 1 degree change in temperature or something like that? What if this happens? What if that happens? A simulation just plots trajectories through a possibility space. And that's what's happening, an exploration of possibilities. However, we aren't zeros and ones in a computer program. We are something way spookier than that. Reality isn't like a computer. A computer is like reality. Reality is some kind of alien technology. And this can get really out there, but I have to wrap this video up. Science currently denies that nature has a purpose, and I have to tell you that this idea of nature not being goal-oriented isn't some scientific fact. There is no nature is meaningless equation out there. It's a belief, just like the belief in a God. I think it's an even weaker claim since we see life exhibiting goal-oriented behavior all over. Science denies that nature progresses, but what else do you call it when you get closer to a goal? It's progress. It's just common sense, which appears to have left the chat. Technically, tomorrow never comes. What is today but yesterday's tomorrow, right? We've all seen that SpongeBob episode. The future never arrives. So why do we feel like it's coming? It's because it's a goal or telos we are inching towards. The phenomenon we call time passing is actually decisions being made. It's potential actualizing. That's what a moment is. It's ignorance becoming knowledge, which progresses towards some kind of goal, aka learning. This means that this ultimate goal is a realizing of some kind. It's a realization. Something will be found out. That's what we do with problems, right? We figure them out. I spend so much of my time pondering on what this realization could be. I'm sure it's some kind of pun or punchline, which I talked about in my members video, because reality mirrors the anatomy of a joke. But this ultimate goal is beyond our ability to currently see, which is why the dogma is that there is no goal or purpose. However, just because it isn't obvious to you, that doesn't mean it isn't there. Remember, the stranger watching you get ready to go to the store has no clue where you're going. They only see you making decisions. All the signs which point to the existence of a goal are apparent, which is what I'm trying to give you the eyes to see. The reason this goal is beyond our purview probably has something to do with the fact that we're just monkeys. I know we aren't literal monkeys. It's called a figure of speech, people. You see, I believe that intelligence just keeps on going and going. It's a spectrum. I think we are somewhere probably on the lower end of that spectrum. The way nature works is once the potential is exhausted in one domain, it unfolds into another dimension of understanding. And the human being appears to be reaching its limit. I don't think it's a coincidence that AI is entering the stage as we sort of are in this period of stagnation. We all feel it. It's like we are at a saturation point. And I could go on and on about all of the contributing factors. Social media plays a part, globalization, and maybe I'll talk about that in a different video. But maybe we can reinvent ourselves. Maybe I'm just projecting at this point. Who knows? But one thing I do know is that I can't invest any more into this video. So I gotta go. Thank you all for listening. And until next time, y'all have a blessed day.